Welcome, everybody. It's great to see you all, and looking forward to this Parasah Tissah, which has as its great moment the shattering of the tablets. We're going to get right into this with the following. Here we go. This is going to be somewhat recognizable to you. Here we go.
And the people rose up to play, and did eat and drink. They were as the children of fools, and cast off their clothes. The wicked were like a troubled sea, whose waters cast up mire and dirt. They sank from evil to evil, and were viler than the earth. And there was rioting and drunkenness, for they had become servants of sin. And there was manifest all manner of ungodliness and works of the flesh, even adultery and lasciviousness, uncleanness, idolatry and rioting, vanity and wrath. And they were filled with iniquity and vile affections. And Aaron knew that he had brought them to shame.
Abiram, Torah, bind the sacrifice with cords, even unto the horns of the altar.
The light of God shines from you, Moses.
Do not kneel to me, Joshua.
These tablets of stone.
The writing of God. His 10 commandments.
What doing?
There is a noise of war in the camp.
It is not the noise of war. It is the noise of song and revelry.
Moses! Joshua!
Woe unto thee, O Israel! You have sinned a great sin in the sight of God. You are not worthy to receive these 10 commandments.
You, Moses. You take too much upon yourself. We will not live by your commandments. We're free.
There is no freedom without the law.
Whose law, Moses? Yours? Did you carve those tablets to become a prince over us?
Who is on the Lord's side? Let him come to me.
You have cursed us.
People made me do it.
Joshua! Joshua!
He showed you no land flowing with milk and honey. I show you a God of gold. Come with me. Follow me.
Blasphemers, idolaters, for this you shall drink bitter waters. God has set before you this day his laws of life and good and death and evil. Those who will not live by the law shall
die by the law.
Wow. Okay.
And the Lord's anger
There you go. Whoa, 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 whoa. It's sorry. um, just someone just Google for me when was it the Ten Commandments was produced and released 19 what? Had to be Susie. Go ahead. Google that for me.
It's probably 60 something.
No, 1956.
1956. Okay. So
that's what it said on the thing.
On the thing.
Oh.
So look. Okay. So I don't want to go too far down into the rabbit hole there of
Was more than one
the
movie.
the way that
There could be another Ten Commandments movie.
yes. No, so I don't want to spend the class comparing the text to the movie, except to imagine in the middle of the 20th century what the depiction of the Ten Commandments must have done, and we've thought about that before, in both the Exodus scenes and also some other scenes. It's the most accessible cinematographic depiction of the story, and it's I don't want to say it's a joke, but I know Cecil B. DeMille took it very seriously. The problem, of course, of the film is that it conflates so many different texts and so many different things, and for those of us who have, and we all, since we've been studying together, I'm sure you all have the same sensibility that the text is elicits from us interpretation that can only be plausible by the text itself. And what you saw there was no way near the plausibility of application, which only begs the question: did he not have any rabbinic advisors when he made the film? Anybody consulting with him, or did he just kind of take everything with a great deal of license? And the downside of it is that for a generation or more of Americans and other people who watch this movie, this movie became the Bible, and it's very hard to determine for the person who's not literate in the Bible where the scenes diverge from the text. So I put that out there as both as a kind of amusement, and also as a way of showing how far removed it is, so that when we get to the text, which we're going to do right now, we're going to see what the motivations were and what the difficulties were and what the stages of the story were, and specifically ask, so when Moses does shatter the tablets, what is that about? Is he exercising this out of anger, or according to one opinion, he's actually trying to let the Israelites off the hook for this? This, I think, is a radically different interpretation. I'm always happy to provide new things that are even new to me in these interpretations, and they give us at least the possibility of a different way of looking at this text. So with that as an introduction, let's go to this text. I'm going to just try and share this right now. Hang on. Here we go. So the shattering of the tablets. This is the text in the book of Shemot, chapter 32. And up until chapter 32, we have just some last bit of information about the sanctuary, a couple of other things. But here, God has finished the tablets, okay? And now I'm going to read. I'm going to make it larger, just a little larger, so you can see with a little more ease. Go ahead. When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, the people gathered against Aaron and said to him, "Come, make us a god who shall go before us. For that man, Moses, who brought us from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has happened to him." Aaron said to them, "Take off the gold rings that are on the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." And all the people took off the gold rings that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. This he took from them and cast in a mold and made it into a molten calf. And they exclaimed, "This is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron announced, "Tomorrow shall be a festival of the Lord." Early next day, the people offered up burnt offerings and brought sacrifices of well-being. They sat down to eat and drink, and then rose to dance. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Hurry down, for your people whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt have acted basely. They have been quick to turn aside from the way that I enjoined upon them. They have made themselves a molten calf and bowed low to it and sacrificed to it, saying, 'This is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt.' The Lord further said to Moses, 'I see that this is a stiff-necked people, and now let me be, that my anger may blaze forth against them, and that I may destroy them, and make of you a great nation.' But Moses implored the Lord his God, saying, 'Let not your anger, O Lord, blaze forth against your people, whom you delivered from the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand. Let not the Egyptians say it was with evil intent that he delivered them, only to kill them off in the mountains and annihilate them from the face of the earth. Turn from your blazing anger and renounce the plan to punish your people. Remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, how you swore to them by yourself and said to them, I will make your offspring as numerous as the stars of heaven, and I will give your offspring this whole land of which I spoke to possess forever.' And the Lord renounced his punishment he had planned to bring upon his people. Thereupon Moses turned and went down from the mountain, bearing the 2 tablets of the pact, tablets inscribed on both their surfaces. They were inscribed on the one side and on the other. The tablets were God's work, and the writing was God's writing, inside upon the tablets. When Joshua heard the sound of the people and its boisterousness, he said to Moses, 'There is a cry of war in the camp.' But he answered, 'It is not the sound of the tune of triumph or the sound of the tune of defeat. It is the sound of song that I hear.' As soon as Moses came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, he became enraged, and he hurled the tablets from his hands and shattered them at the foot of the mountain. He took the calf that they had made and burned it. He ground it into a powder and strewed it upon the water, and so made the Israelites drink it. Moses said to Aaron, 'What did this people do to you that you have brought such great sin upon them?' Aaron said, 'Let not my Lord be enraged. You know that this people is bent on evil. They said to me, Make us a god to lead us. For that man Moses, who brought us from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has happened to him.' So I said to them, 'Whoever has gold, take it off.' They gave it to me, and I hurled it into the fire, and out came this calf. Moses saw that the people were out of control, since Aaron had let them get out of control, so that they were a menace to any who might oppose them. Moses stood up in the gate of the camp and said, 'Whoever is for the Lord, come here.' And all the Levites rallied to him. He said to them, 'Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, Each of you put sword on thigh. Go back and forth from gate to gate throughout the camp and slay brother, neighbor, and kin. The Levites did as Moses is bidden, and some 3,000 of the people fell that day. Moses said, dedicate yourselves to the Lord this day, for each of you has been against son and brother, that he may bestow a blessing upon you today. The next day Moses said to the people, you have been guilty of a great sin, yet I will now go up to the Lord. Perhaps I may win forgiveness for your sins. Moses went back to the Lord and said, alas, this people is guilty of a great sin in making for themselves a god of gold. Now, if you will forgive their sin, well and good. But if not, erase me from the record which you have written. But the Lord said to Moses, he who has sinned against me, him only will I erase from my record. Go now, lead the people where I told you. See, my angel shall go before you. But when I make an accounting, I will bring them to account for their sins. And that's where the chapter ends. Moses goes back up to the mountain, intercedes. He asks God to be compassionate, and God reveals his covenant of compassion to him. And then by the end of the Parsha, Moses will come down with the second set of tablets. Note that the first set of tablets God incised, but the second set of tablets Moses incised, and Moses brings them down, and the people accept the second set. We read this passage with a great deal of pathos and a great deal of emotion, and I want to say we don't need the movie here. There's plenty going on in the text to enable us to imagine what the story is telling us, and B, to try and interpret it. And I'm not exaggerating if I say that we could spend literally an entire semester on this story, because every single line practically raises important questions. Of course, we're not going to do that. We're just going to try and focus on the main questions from this story. And I guess we'll start at the beginning. I mean, I have a summary here, but I could before we get to that, let me see where your questions are or comments are, and maybe get some reactions to this, or what are some of the difficulties that you would want to put on the agenda here? First of all, any reactions? Go ahead, Lana. Go ahead.
Well, I'm sure there are many explanations for the reason that Moses did what he did with the tablets, but what did he really want to show by doing it? What was behind? Was it a spontaneous reaction, or does it have a special meaning? And the other one, how did, I forgot in English, Egel Zahav, how did an egel come out of whatever was put in the fire?
So as to the meaning of the splitting, the commandments, breaking the tablets, of course, there are so many different meanings to it. The most accessible meaning that I think we could present here is that, well, the tablets represent the covenant, and the people have broken the covenant, so the tablets are worthless. So he smashes them to indicate that they are worthless, that the covenant is broken. That seems to be a line in many of the traditional commentaries, and also in some of the commentaries from biblical scholarship who say that this is similar to when treaties are broken, it's basically torn. The idea of tearing a document as a breaking of the document, or as a demonstration, that still exists to this day. One of the stunning moments of the last presidency was, I believe it was last year's State of the Union, where President Trump gave his State of the Union. At the end of the State of the Union, Nancy Pelosi ripped the speech. I have to say that, that was a stunning moment. It's a stunning moment to rip a document, in half. Of course, the document itself wasn't a covenantal document, it you know, the speech itself represents a kind of quasi covenantal arrangement between you know, the president and the Congress, you know. So ripping it obviously was to symbolize the severance of a relationship, and that you know, we have that to this day in the ripping up of contracts, or, you know, well, we don't, the burning of the mortgage is a different symbol, right? It means that you've paid up all your debts, right? And therefore the mortgage is no longer valid, and it's a celebratory moment. But the breaking of covenants and the tearing up of documents is important. In fact, no, that's it. So the, you know, these are important moments. And the second question, which was regarded to the Egel Masecha, how did he do this? Where did he do it? And why did he do this? This again goes to some, you know, I wish we could travel back in time and understand what the symbolism means. The archaeologists and the scholars who investigate these things point to the fact that in ancient religions of the Middle East, the gods are depicted riding on the animal. They're riding on a bull, or they're riding on a bovine creature. So in these religions, they're depicted actually sitting on them. So the calf itself was, it's not a depiction of God, it's a depiction of the seat of God, because God is invisible. Nevertheless, by doing this, they are still violating, you know, the commandment, at least the commandment, Elohei Masecha, you shall not make yourself a molten God, but they're also violating the idolatry commandments. Mike.
I'm sorry, but I didn't mean what you said. I think I knew, but yeah. How did it come out in the shape?
In the shape of a calf.
Yeah.
He says it himself. He says himself. And look, it came out.
And who made it to come out like this?
Who made it?
Aharon did.
Aharon did. Aharon makes it that way. How he makes it, it's not. It obviously it doesn't tell us. You know.
My main problem with this whole event is Aharon. Like,
yes.
Like, what was Aharon's motivation in doing all of this? Aharon he caved in so quickly. Like in one verse, he caves into the will of the people. And Aharon is with Moshe, well, you know, through Egypt, through the 10 plagues. He saw everything. He was Moshe's right-hand man, and then he caves in so quickly.
How did he do it?
Let's look at the text, and we'll try and answer the question, and we'll get to some, you know, the classic answers here. So it says, "Vayikahel ha'am al Aharon." All right. So that word Vayikahel, Vayaram ki boshesh Moshe. So the way that the commentators, you know, elaborate on this is that Moses said he was going up for 40 days. And the question was, from when do you count the days? From the day he goes up, or the day from after he goes up? So that means that they're counting, and according to them, it's 40 days, and according to Moses, it's 39 days. So he's tarrying one day. And so what you have here is a reflection of the insecurity of the Israelites, whose leader is gone for 40 days. Now, I'm going to just close the screen for a second. Let's not underestimate what that means, okay? 40 days is a long time to be without your leader. And that it's one thing for, you know, someone to go away for a week, 2 weeks, you know, take a leave of absence. 40 days is a significant amount of time for this kind of seclusion. You know, we have no concept of that in our time, simply because we relate to political leaders in a very transactional and direct way. I'm recalling, I remember reading this or seeing this in some documentary when Nixon was elected, or he went away. There was he went on a seclusion, right? He liked to do that, and he went off the radar, like it's something maybe worth kind of researching. And what that says is that you don't have access to the person, and there's tremendous insecurity and a vacuum. And as you probably have all known, politics abhors a vacuum. And what you have here is the absolute stretching of the patience of the people to its limit, to the point which not only is it at its limit, it breaks here. It's broken. So a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe you can get away with. 4 weeks, 5 weeks, no. And so should he have known this? Of course he should have known it, but this is Moses, this is God, this is, he is up there by himself with God. What could be better, kind of thing, 40 days. And the people are anxious, okay? So it's at that moment that they turn on Aaron. So let's go back to the text. And this, it says here, Moshe, Boshesh Moshe Laredet Minahar. He's hesitating coming down from the mountain. Vayikahel ha'am al Aaron. They gang up on him. They gang up on him. Vayomra elav kuma selanu Elohim asher yelchu lefanenu. And the Midrash reads into this that Aaron was scared. He was scared to death because Hur, according to the Midrash, Hur was, they had already came against another person, Hur, and they killed him. Okay, it's not here, but it's the Midrash. In other words, the Midrash is picking up on Aaron's insecurity and Aaron's sense of timing. Is he going to placate the people? Because he's like looking at his watch and he's going like, give me another day, come on now, if I could only, call Moses on the cell phone and say, Moses, you better get down quick because the people are going out of control, right? But he has no way of communicating to him. He has no way of signaling to Moses anything, and he's in big trouble. So I like the traditional reading here that he's stalling. He's trying to stall for time. Like Helam al Aaron, they're ganging up on him. Kum, aseh lanu Elohim, make us a God, asher yelchu lefanenu, that will go before us. Kizeh Moshe ish, because Moses, the man, asher helanu meretz Yisrael, who took us out of Egypt, lo yadanu mehayalo. We don't know what happened to him. So even in that sentence, you have the insight into the confusion of the people. Who took them out of Egypt? Is it God or is it a man? What is the nature of what they want? Is it a God or is it man? Is it a symbol of divine leadership? And is Moses God to them, or is Moses a representative of God? And in the absence of that, you have complete insecurity and complete sense of impending doom. Okay, so then, and Michael, you're right. Yeah, Aaron should at least get a misdemeanor here, because he says, "Vayomer alehem Aaron, harku nizmei hazahav." Take off your gold rings that are on the ears of your wives. Asher boznei neshechem v'nechem uvnotechem v'avio elai, and bring them to me. So, it's a very clever statement. Take your wife's jewelry, okay? And the interpretation here is, I'm going to make it really difficult, okay? Because, you're now going to have to go and negotiate with your wives. It's, obviously he's talking to the men here. So he's saying, go have a fight with your wives and get their earrings from them, get their nizamim, get their whatever their jewelry is. So see if they're willing to part with their jewelry for this project, okay? And in a way, we get the joke here. The joke is, how willing are the women going to be to give up their jewelry for the sake of this fetish? And it is a fetish. And what is so surprising and not really surprising is verse 3. And all the people took off the gold rings that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. So the Torah is very clever here, because it's the verse 2 was directed to the men to go to their wives and children, and then verse 3 is everybody. So maybe the men also had some earrings, but they come in by the bushel. There's so much gold that's brought in, and the homily is look what people will do to satisfy a fetish, okay? And look what people will do once you have a kind of peer group mentality setting in. And I think that the Torah here is really highlighting this, that while there's a group of people that go to their wives, everybody's looking at everybody else. And if somebody does it, then everybody's going to do it. And all of a sudden, an avalanche of gold earrings comes into Aaron, and now he doesn't know what to do, but he does. So Aaron has already committed himself to something. Like Kach mi Adam, verse 4, Vayatzar oto ba'acheret, and here this is a very unusual phrase. I don't even know where cheret occurs elsewhere. Charatim, but he makes a cast in a mold, and we are correct, in asking the question, where does he get a mold? How does he make a mold? What is it made out of? It's got to be made out of some kind of clay or some kind of thing like that, and it just doesn't come normally. And then just if I advance a couple of verses where it gets burned, the logical question is, well, can you burn gold? Gold is not a flammable substance. Gold melts, and when gold melts, it turns into a liquid. How does that become ground into a powder? So there are some people in the more kind of esoteric biblical scholarship commentaries that think that what you have here is that it's gold plated, as if it, in the end it doesn't make any difference, but it's there is something at the core. It's a wooden core, and that the gold plated wooden core of the statue, everything is burnt. That becomes the basis of the ash, and that is then pulverized into a kind of crystalline pulverized, and then it's dissolved in the water, if it could even dissolve, but it doesn't dissolve, and that is what the people are forced to drink. The point is that it's a process that the Bible really doesn't pay attention to, but because the Bible is really focused on, he does this, he makes it, okay? Go to verse 5. What now again, we're casting a lot of blame onto Aaron, but you could read this text as Aaron is trying to delay, okay? He says he spends the time making the thing. Vayatzar oto ba'acheret. He puts it in the mold. He makes the calf, and they declare, "Vayomru ele Elohecha Yisrael asher alucha me'eretz Mitzrayim." These are the gods of Israel, brought you out of the land. So in other words, they see the marvelous thing, and they have their response. So that statement is both the statement of great idolatry, apostasy, but it's also the statement of awe and wonder. So Aaron is capitalizing on that wonder, because because it's a spontaneous reaction. And he says, let me see if I can get another day out of this. Vayar Aharon, he sees this. Vayiven Mizbeach, he builds the altar, Lefanav, before the thing. Vayikra Aharon, he makes a declaration. Vayomar, Chag Ladonai Machar. Let's make a festival to God tomorrow. So he's basically saying, I'm gonna do my best. Moses, you better get down from the mountain, because we'll be able to celebrate with you tomorrow, and we'll be able to put this aside. And of course, once the people hear that there's going to be a feast, well, they get very excited. And the word vayashkimu indicates excitement or zeal that you want to accomplish the mitzvah. Every time the word vayashkem occurs in the Bible, it always indicates the eagerness with which one wants to perform a mitzvah. Avraham and Yitro and Moshe, they all do that. I mean, Yaakov also, I think. Vayalu olot, they make the burnt offerings. Vayagishu shlamim. Now we've seen that already twice. We saw that once with Yitro, and we saw it once in the ceremony of the covenant. So the Torah really knows what it's doing here. The people know what they're doing here. They want to imitate those festival kinds of celebrations that have already been done around the covenanting. And this then is to become a new consecration. That's the problem. That you could say, on the one hand, making the golden calf is the worst thing. I would even go further, that beyond the making of the golden calf is now the worshiping of it. That the presenting of sacrifices says that they've gone completely over the edge here by offering the sacrifices before it, and worse, by offering these festival offerings that you eat. Okay, so they're having a real kiddush here, a full sit-down meat kiddush. Except they get up and they play. So vayeshev ha'am lechol, it says they sit down. So there's a certain solemnity there. They vishato, they drink, and I'm guessing that they're drinking not water. Vayakumu litzachek, and those two words, that's where all hell breaks loose. The getting up and litzachek, that is the problem. Litzachek, as we know, has a vast semantic range, which includes playing and includes sexual, orgiastic, mixed dancing. Okay, how are we now?
They were so repressed.
They were so repressed.
Rabbi,
yes.
Doesn't this bring up the question, the power of words, spoken words, over the power of written words? Aaron spoke.
You're referring to. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Aaron spoke. Moses brought down written words.
Yes.
And it's you can never take speech back. But as you pointed out before, you can tear up a contract. Written words.
Written words are, look, they're both very powerful. I think.
Oh yeah.
It's the theme here is I think that's certainly in the cluster of all the themes here is how is God communicating to the people, and to have the written Torah, the written covenant, means that it's the object. I mean, it's not an accident that Jews revere the written text, because the written text becomes not the symbol of God himself, but it's the symbol, of course, of what God says. What God says cannot be written down. The Torah is an approximation, the attempt to condense what God says in a written text, and that is also true of the Ten Commandments. And what the people say here absolutely carries tremendous power. Ilana, go ahead.
I'm wondering if they knew, or they were still with this mentality about what is the meaning of God. Is God something that you make? Because they are asking Aaron to make them a god. So what does it really, I mean, it doesn't look good the way their mentality is. Maybe it's still going back to Egypt, that they saw all the gods, the Egyptian gods, and those were made by whatever. How do you believe in a God that you make it?
So we're going to approach this saying in two ways. One is this moment represents a certain stage in the religious imagination and the development of the religious imagination. So that means that yes, they still have to work out in them this association with idolatry, and they haven't gotten over it, and that is probably because of their exposure to Egyptian society and because of the primitive ideas that are there. On the other hand, you could say, look, in that people, of course, not everybody was I certainly don't want to say not everybody was stupid, and not everybody could fetishize. And there were certainly among them, like there are in every cohort of people who are more intelligent and people who are more capable of abstract thinking, and they're relating to it on their level as well. I think about this. We live in such a very secular and desacralized time. But many of us can recall customs and things that were done either for superstition or other reasons that had tremendous, meaning for people. And it takes, a generation, or the cataclysm that the Jewish people have experienced, that's kind of purged all of that out of us. But there are still pockets of the Jewish people where you can find things like, just the placing of, quote, the Rebbe's photograph on a child's crib. These things, look really strange to us. How about putting a note in the wall? Okay, now that is a symbolic, revered tradition, but if you are not immersed in the symbolism of that just looks very, very silly. And it is, people play and joke with that idea that by putting a note in the wall, that's your prayer is answered. And these things, these residues of magical thinking, fetishized thinking, and tactile need for representing God, they're still present with us. And I don't think we're ever going to, quote, purge that out of religious imagination. What we're going to do, what we always do, is talk about it or interpret it. But those things stay because human nature, it always needs something to focus on. The point also is that religion, I like this idea very much. Religion, in order to be taken seriously, has to appeal to many people on many different levels at the same time. So you can teach the story, as many of us have, to children and get a reaction from children that is just, very simple. It's just, he was mad, and so what he did was he threw the tablets down, boom, and that's it. And that's what he was mad. And that's on a simple level. On the other hand, you know, and here we'll take some time to go into these interpretations. You know, maybe he was trying to be a political leader. And here, this is what I would, you know, the way I'm going to frame it from here to the end of the class is that there's a certain genius in Moses. That Moses understands that if he were to back away from God and allow God to be God, which is to completely judge the people and destroy them, then the whole project is over. And that Moses has to intercede on the people's behalf to God and has to intercede on God's behalf to the people. And that this moment then becomes a great example of Moses's leadership, notwithstanding some questions that will linger, especially for a modern audience. No commentator that I have read in the last 24 hours seems to come up with a compelling explanation for Moses saying, okay, Mi Lashem Elai, who is to God, come to me, and go out and kill your brother and your neighbor who has done it. That is a very blood-curdling, literally, and troubling moment in the Bible where Moses insists on this act. The closest that I saw to being compelling is that this staves off the collective punishment which would have taken place had not there been a way of executing the perpetrators immediately. According to Nachmanides, Ramban, this is hora'at sha'ah, this is an emergency, which is a way of saying we're suspending, you know, the normal exercise of judiciousness for the sake of the immediate now, which, you know, happens. You know, you have a declaration of an emergency in which your normal rights and the normal due process is suspended. You know, that happens in every system. So here, normal due process is for the sake of preserving the whole at the expense of a part. That is, we have to think about that. That comes at least close, because otherwise you have a situation where everybody's going to be destroyed, and the indictment against God would be very strong, which is, how could you take the righteous with the wicked? And that goes back to Abraham. Okay, so we are saying here that this moment is a very, very complicated moment, and therefore it requires a mature approach. Let me share with you this text here. Go ahead. See what you make out of this. So I summarized we didn't even go into the Moses' speech of intercession. I would look at this and show you that when Moses intercedes to God, Shuv mecharon apecha, that's the center of the text. It's all about Moses saying to God, you know, appealing to God's vanity, you know, Zachor, you know, remember the ancestors, remember Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, remember your covenant. What are they going to say about you that you took the people out of Egypt only to destroy them? It's appealing to God's sense of godness. Okay, but here is another comment. So here's my summary of all the things. Moses descends the mount. Moses' great intercession. God relents. Moses descends. Joshua reports, and then Moses advances, sees the mayhem, becomes enraged, casts the tablets, and breaks them. Okay, let's go to this. Aaron Wildowski, Moses as political leader. I'm going to read here. Can you all see this text? There is a certain appeal to the theory that Moses thought he could let the people off lightly by breaking the tablets, and hence the covenant, before the people had become aware of the consequences. This view can be encapsulated neatly in a rabbinic comparison. To what may this be likened, asks Rabbi Samuel Bar Nachman, to that envoy whom a king sent to espouse his bride in his name. When the envoy came to seek her, he found that she had defiled her flesh with another. What did he do? He tore up the contract of marriage, saying, if we're better for her to be judged as a maid than as a bride. In the same way Moses thought, it were better for the congregation of Israel, since the Torah condemneth them not to be united to God by the Torah, and he shattered the Torah. Caught between a rock and a hard place, Moses has to draw a fine line. Is maintaining the law his responsibility alone because the tablets were broken before the people knew about them? For letting people off the hook, this works well. But by keeping Moses dangling on the hook, it is not so good. Without the authority of the law, having broken the tablets, what right does Moses have to punish the people? The last time Moses killed without authority, his own people had rejected him, and he had spent long years of exile in its very wilderness. What can Moses do if he does not wish the people to be destroyed as they deserve, and yet cannot allow them to continue as they desire? So this is, I'd love to keep this up because it's a difficult text. We don't have the time to really meditate on it. But I'm going to just say that the bottom line, what he's trying to say is, look, why does he destroy the tablets? He destroys the tablets so that the law won't be operative for them when he adjudicates the sentence. I think this is brilliant. It's a brilliant move because it says, look, if we keep the law and you are violating the law, then you have to get the punishment. But if the law has been nullified, then you haven't violated the law. At the very least, you made a transgression of intent that we need to restore. And therefore, we will do what we need to do. We will try and seek atonement for your intentionality here, but we won't execute the people as the law would require because there won't be any people left. So Moses literally, as Wildowski says in that lovely statement, Moses is literally between a rock and a hard place. I never saw that midrash before, and frankly, I tried to look it up in the text because this is the book. He doesn't. He cites a different source. He doesn't cite the source for that midrash directly. So I have to find it. I have to hunt it down. But I think it's very, very. It's a brilliant metaphor. The people, God has sent out an agent to betroth the betrothed, the wife. And the agent, when on the mission of betrothal, sees that the wife is sleeping with other men. Okay?
Thank you.
So when he sees that the prospective bride is sleeping around, he goes, what am I supposed to do? If I bring her back, she's going to be executed. So let me nullify the king's contract, and so there won't be any marriage to be taken. That I won't have to exercise the severity of his intent. She'll be off the hook. And Moses is the agent here. It's a brilliant way of it's a brilliant way to weasel out of a problem. It's really, and I say it's refreshing because the scene you saw. I mean, the movie picks up on this. I think the intensity is just over the top, and what this does is it puts it back into the human scale, and it says, look, the people, and I think you're right. In saying that the people are not yet able to assume the responsibilities of monotheism that have been given to them. They are not educated. They are not sophisticated. There may be smart people among them, but the core of the people is prone to fetishization. The core of the people is prone to idolatrous thinking, and they need to get it out of their system, and it's just going to take a long time. And this moment is the great disappointment. This has got to have been a great disappointment for Moses. And Moses, you got to give him credit here, was saying, what choices do I have? I have this people or I have nothing, right? I have the covenant. And again, we got to remind ourselves the power of the ancestry to motivate behavior. He's saying, at the very least, I'm doing this to fulfill the promise that was made by you, God, to your ancestors. You're the one that wants the covenant with this people. Look what you have. You have this people. This people have been enslaved. These people are not sophisticated. These people are vulnerable. They're lonely. They're without their leader. You thought that you'd get away with keeping Moses to yourself for 40 days. Well, look what happened. You should have let him come down a week before, a couple of days before. It's not their fault, it's your fault. That's a great defense for the people. If God were to be on trial, it would be, what do you expect? Their people are acting against their will. They don't know any better. And the law, yes, you gave them the law, but as Skip said, the law, there's no written record of it because the record is destroyed. It's not, yes, there was a covenant ceremony. Yes, all of that. But the law doesn't exist. It's almost like saying, yes, they've ratified it in terms of the Constitution, the United States Constitution. But imagine they ratified the Constitution, and by the time it got to where it needed to get to, someone said, well, it doesn't apply anymore, and they rip it up. And so you don't have the one single record of the Constitution doesn't exist. And so now go adjudicate according to the Constitution. That's what he's saying. He's saying that the agreement doesn't hold. We have to go back and make a new agreement. I think there's something very brilliant about that. Someone react. Go ahead, Marlene.
The 10 Commandments are the theories of how to live. They're not the contract that if you don't do this, then this will happen, for one thing. My second question is, how did they know who to kill? They walked around killing all these people. And then they drink ash water, which in the other situations kills off people. And then today we say on Mondays and Thursdays especially, Shuv Merachun, Mecharon, we remind all these things, we venerate the Torah, we bow in front of it, we fast 40 days if it falls to the floor, and that's not an idol. We just bow to it and face it, and we can't pray with our backs to it, and you can't put your hands in your pockets. So I'm kind of at 6.
All right, so you
for argument's sake.
Okay, so let's take the last one first because I already can't remember the first one. So the answer, Marlene, is yes. We do have we have behaviors that are borderline behaviors when it comes to the way we venerate the Torah. Now, I will say, since talking about this, being aware of it, that there's within a symbolic act, there is always going to be a whole range of meanings. Some people kiss the Torah because they are kissing the Torah, directly, and as a sign of reverence. I've maintained all the time that the placing of tzitzit on the Torah is the signal of affirmation, and that the reverential treatment that we do to tzitzit is just that. It's just an act of respect and reverence, but in no way should be seen as a substitution for revering God. We adore our symbols because of what they represent, and because we are attuned to the idea of the sacred, and we are attuned, I think, rightly so, to the idea of defilement. It doesn't exist pretty much anywhere in our society. I mean, look what happened, a month and a half ago, and I used these very words at the Capitol riots, which was, it was the feeling above everything else that I tried to articulate was the feeling of defilement. Agree, disagree, whatever, that's beyond the question. It's what happened there is for people to go in that way and to make a shambles and make is defiling. And those words, that kind of language was the language that was used, despite the fact that it's not a religious place and it's not a holy place, and yet it's an important place. And for important places and important things, we have certain symbolic ways of showing reverence. And when that reverence is not shown, it shakes the body politic up. And so for us, the Torah is what is the closest we can get. When a Torah falls out of the ark, we fast because we feel truly shaken up by that. For those of us who've been in the room when that has happened, and I've been in it happens in camp, it's happened in other places. I don't think it's ever really happened at shul. I can't remember this event, but many people may have had, you feel something. It feels horrible. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. And we assess that based on the fact that something that we adore and revere has been defiled. And so we need to cleanse that. We need to repair that at the very least. And look, over the last 6 months, when statues of revered, figures in America have been toppled, some people are rejoicing at that, and some people are mournful at that. Not that the statues themselves are to be worshipped. Nobody worships a statue, but they symbolize value in the society, and the desecration and the vandalization of monuments really reflects the vandalization of things and values that we certainly revere. And of course, this is the uncomfortable debate that we are presently engaged in the society, to what extent you can, quote, cancel people from your past because your moral sensibilities do not coincide with their moral sensibilities of a century or two ago, which is absurd. Go ahead, Bob.
So I just wanted to come back a few comments that on the subject of Moses' leadership. There's a wonderful commentary by the late Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sachs about Aaron, and that as a peacemaker, he was bringing the other form of leadership that Moses did not bring, from the law versus peace. And along with your comments about the delay and about fear, that he was also identifying the mixed multitudes as a possible segment within the population that were responsible for the golden calf. And so there was a much more positive way of thinking about Aaron that he was proposing. I'm also going to go out a bit on a limb by wondering whether or not the smashing of the tablets in any way is analogous, and it isn't actually, to the breaking of a cup at a wedding, because the sparks of holiness then begin to go out amongst the people, and instead of the laws all coming just from Hashem, people are contributing as well in the second set of tablets. So that's my 2 cents worth on that.
So it's a nice analogy to make, and of course, the analogy could be read in terms of the opposites, and the smashing of the cup in terms of getting people, breaking people, bringing people down to earth, or as a moment that defines the end of the ceremony. It basically states this is the end of perfection. I think that we'll have to kind of take a sip of wine and meditate on this. I would also meditate on another thing that I came across, which is, Moses, he spends 3 verses here, or a verse and a half, grinding up, burning the thing, grinding it up, putting it in water, making them drink it, when he could have easily done that with the tablets. Think about it. He smashes the tablets, so he could have said, "Hey, Joshua, go collect all the broken pieces." How many times have you dropped a plate in your kitchen? Okay, right? You sweep it up. Okay, happens to me. You sweep it up. Well, you take it in your mortar and pestle. You crush it down. You put it. You could theoretically do this and say, "Here, everybody drink." And instead of drinking the sin, they could be drinking the antidote. And so, what is the meaning then of the drinking of the potion? Well, you alluded to this, Marlene. The sota episode is the drinking of the waters, the bitter waters that is an ordeal for the adulterous wife. And scholars are divided on whether
for an accused,
right?
Not necessarily an adulteress.
Exactly. Okay. So the scholarship is divided as to whether or not there is a link here. It's as plausible as linking the shattering of the glass to the tablets as well. Point is that in the consumption of a liquid, a beverage made of this, you are making a statement. You're saying, you want idolatry? Eat your idolatry. Drink your idolatry. Let it become part of you. Let this now be in your blood. Okay? If you want, and we could criticize Moses all we want, but there is a certain poetic justice here. You want to have this experience. Let this now be a part of your very bone structure, okay? Let it be in your gut, in your nutrition, right? Or even worse, drink this and see what happens to it. This is not God. You don't drink your God. This is what goes through you, basically. And that's also the message. Bob.
But isn't he also distinguishing this type of sacrifice from the sacrifices in the previous Parshiyot, which were more appropriate, that this is an inappropriate type of sacrifice?
Absolutely. And I think again, there's a symbolic statement that can be seen on so many different levels, including that one, which is what's appropriate, what's inappropriate. Those were appropriate, this is inappropriate. And of course, this is inanimate. This is poison. This is poison. And you're going to get a dose of poison here. So you could ask yourself, is this the is this the vaccination of the people to prevent them from doing this ever again? I like that idea. I could go to town with that kind of idea, that by ingesting the golden calf, you are now going to create antibodies against.
It's like homeopathy.
It's homeopathy, exactly. Oh, it's a little tiny thing, whatever. Okay. Any other reactions?
Good job, Ruth.
We didn't even touch the surface of this. I know that this is such a complicated thing, and as usual, I have the whole week to think about it. We've come to the end of our time, but so in addition to that beautiful midrash, Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachman, he breaks it before they could violate it. There are a number of other midrashim. One, which I'll just share and to end with, is that the tablets were being, elevated by, every letter had two wings on it. And when the people committed this act of idolatry, the letters themselves rose from the tablets. The tablets no longer had any kind of buoyancy. They became too heavy for Moses, and he dropped them. And that is not anger. That is simply the level of frustration. The rabbis carefully they have difficulty with Moses. Some rabbis have difficulty with Moses' anger. And I just want to point you to this article. We don't have time to look at it, but this is an article that occurs in the Torah.com. It is called Moses' anger, top of the page. Moses shatters the tablets in anger. This is the Torah.com. If you search this week's Parsha, Uzi Weingarten, he says that we have a debate going on here, this nice picture here, but you have Moses getting angry, and then you have the rabbis taking to task Moses and his anger. Just read this. Our traditional commentators take a face value the climax of Moses broke the tablets of known initiative of anger, but criticize his behavior. A particularly censorious midrash appears in the 9th century Deuteronomy Rabbah, the verse in which Moses recounts how God told him to make the second set of tablets. At that time, God said to me, sculpt 2 stone tablets like the first one. Commenting on this instruction, the midrash says, it is written, do not be fast to anger, for anger resides in the bosom of fools. Who was angry? Moses was. As it is written, Moses got angry and flung the tablets from his hand. This bold and audacious midrash quotes the verse about fools getting angry and applies it to Moses. Being fast to anger is the quality of fools and leads to foolish behavior, impulsive and ill-considered, which is what this midrash thinks the shattering of the tablets was. Better would have been to calmly evaluate the situation and then decide on appropriate action. Especially powerful is the continuation of the midrash where God rebukes Moses. God said to him, so Moses, you are calming your anger by destroying the tablets of the covenant? Do you want me to calm my anger by destroying things? Do you not see that the world would not last even 1 hour were I to do so? Moses said to God, what should I do? God said, you need to pay a penalty. You shattered them, you replaced them. Sculpt 2 stone tablets. This is just gorgeous. This is a gorgeous way of saying, look at it the other way. If he does it in anger, he's being foolish. And you don't succeed in doing things with anger. And that's coming from the rabbis. And that is so radically different from the Torah. It's not even funny. It's spellbinding. It's just amazing how the rabbis could come up with that. And well, I mean, there is another voice in the Talmud that says, Yasher Koach, Moses, you did the right thing. And here there's an oppositional force that's saying, Moses, you did the wrong thing. So now I ask you, as a matter of behavior in moments of crisis, do you act with anger or do you act with, what was more appropriate, deliberation or action? Ilana, go ahead, answer.
I read by Rashbam justifying Moses for doing it, because when he saw the golden calf, he felt so weak, so he couldn't hold the tablet.
There you go. Yeah.
He let it down.
Very good.
Like a whoosh.
Very whoosh. Bob, last word.
I don't mean to have the last word, but perhaps this is a commentary on being stiff-necked and stubborn at all sides.
Absolutely, all sides. So at the very least, we saw how complicated this story is, how rich it is, and emotional it is, and of course it lingers on. I think Marlene also you highlighted it lingers on in the consciousness and the liturgy of Judaism to this very day. This moment does. Certainly Yom Kippur and certainly the daily Tachanun, Shuv Mecharon Apecha. We're always asking God to hold back. We want God to be compassionate and not to act like Moses did here. All right, everyone, have a good week.